Hurts has got it, wants to throw. Hurts setting up the screen. It is complete and blown up. Miles Sanders caught it. Malcolm Rodriguez was there waiting for him. That's a big play by Rodrigo.
Welcome to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. And it's a big week. We're coming off a huge victory Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. But before I start, I'm going to do something a little different today. I had the privilege a couple weeks ago of going into Bemis Elementary in Troy High School and talking to their fifth graders just about journalism and sports writing. And I gave those young, inspiring journalists a challenge. We watched the clip of Amon-Ra St. Brown's touchdown against Minnesota last year. And I had all the students write a lead. We talked about just how important a lead is and getting people, into your article. Great participation, 4 different classes. And so I want to shout out the 4 winners of each class and the eventual winner who got an Aiden Hutchinson signed football. Now, I apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce some of the names. I've been practicing this a little bit, but bear with me. Congratulations to Shruti Srinvasan. Congratulations to Isabella Liu, Kenya Mendrita, and to the winner, Darren Lee. So congratulations to those young fifth graders. I'm sure one of you will take my job eventually. It was fun talking to you guys, and thank you so much. But all right, let's get into football now. And this week, obviously a big week, like we talked about, coming off a win and now looking for another big win, 2 in a row against the division, and looking to get Dan Campbell's first win on the road as well. So a big week. They talked all the time about after the start that this team got off to. They've talked about. Now we've got to stack wins. Now there's we can't have losses mixed in with wins. If we want to be relevant November, at the end of November into December, now it's time to stack wins, and that starts Sunday. Could be an interesting one this week where maybe cold weather plays a factor into the game. I know we are all enjoying 70 degrees on Thursday. That is going to be 40 degrees and 30 degrees heading into the weekend. And I think the last time I checked, Chicago was about 36 degrees on Sunday. So, again, we know it's the Windy City. There could be some cold temperatures. So I think that's going to, maybe play a factor for the first time this year with both these offenses. And look, when you talk about offense, Chicago Bears are rolling right now. They have figured some things out, and I think partly it's because they've unleashed their quarterback, second-year quarterback Justin Fields. I think they found a right recipe of some run plays, some quarterback run plays. They're using some read option stuff and some design stuff to utilize his athleticism and his legs. And look, he's coming off a performance last week where he rushed for 176 yards and a touchdown. That's an NFL record for the regular season, but he also threw 3 touchdowns as well. So they're really unlocking something there in Chicago. They've got 4 straight games where they've rushed for at least 225 yards. So, boy, this Lions defense has their work cut out for them this week. But we're talking about a Lions defense, too, that's coming off arguably their best performance of the week against Green Bay. Held Green Bay to 9 points in that 15-9 win and got 3 takeaways, which I know Aaron Glenn and those guys have talked about as being a point of emphasis to get some of those takeaways, and those big plays on defense. And they were able to do that. So, I think it's going to be a terrific performance, an offense that's really, really hot. And can this Detroit defense stay hot? I think that'll be a key, obviously, to Sunday. And then, look, Detroit's getting a little healthier, too, which I think is important for this weekend. Josh Reynolds was the only player on the roster who didn't participate in practice on Thursday, at least by the numbers that I scouted watching practice, the open portion on Thursday. So, look, that list has been long pretty much all year for the Detroit Lions, that inactive list, that injured list, that non-practice list, and it's getting a little bit shorter this week. So, that's good. They're getting healthy at a good time, and hopefully they can stack some wins together. I've got a really busy show this week. Jerry Jacobs is bringing the energy on this pod today. I'm just going to warn you guys ahead of time. Jerry, the second-year cornerback, had a terrific game last week. You see him, talking, chirping on the field, too. Well, when we get into a little bit, too, and he's great. I got Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune to break down, the Bears-Lions matchup. And Mike O'Hara, the Hall of Famer, is going to join me for key matchups. So stick with me. It's a very busy show today as the Lions get ready to face the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field in Chicago on Sunday. Welcome back to the 20 Minute Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. And I am glad to welcome in Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune. Does an awesome job covering the Bears there in Chicago. Brad, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate you stopping by. So look, let's start right away. What's gotten into the Chicago Bears here, especially offensively, Brad?
Who would have imagined this was coming? The Bears have put it's like 92, 94 points up in the last 3 games. I mean, here's how well Justin Fields played last Sunday at Soldier Field against the Miami Dolphins. The Bears lost the game, Tim, and Fields was named NFC Offensive Player of the Week.
How often does that happen?
Well, and that's that. You know what? When I get done with you, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. Like, how often does the guy get Player of the Week award when his team lost? But that's to my point that in Chicago, last couple of weeks anyway, if you would just have a casual conversation with a Bears fan, they're acting like the team's won. Okay. You know, they score 29 in Dallas, and they end up losing that game by 20, but they put up 29 points. They blew out the New England Patriots on the road in a Monday night game. So the mood has changed substantially about the future of the franchise the last couple weeks with the fan base.
You know, how much credit does Luke Getsy get for incorporating Justin more into the run game, right? Looking at what he does well and saying, hey, we're not going to fit him to my system. Let's build this thing around what he does well. You see what they've done in Baltimore, you know, Greg Roman with the Ravens. And it seems like, you know, Getsy's really, you know, done a great job of kind of building this around what Justin does well. And that's just being a terrific athlete.
Had a couple really poor games earlier in the year, and probably one of the most frustrating was a Thursday night home loss to Washington. They lost 12-7. It was brutal, but they played on a Thursday night, and that gave them an 11-day window until the next game, because they didn't play again until the following Monday. So they had kind of this mini bye, and Matt Eberflus kind of challenged the coaches to, hey, we're going to self-scout now, because the Bears' actual bye week isn't until week 14. They got the last possible bye week you can have on the schedule, which a few coaches would pick something that deep into the calendar.
Yeah, it's late.
So Eberflus challenged his coordinators, his position coaches, to kind of self-scout. We want to find out, you know, more ways to put our positions and our players in positions to play to their strengths, kind of try to minimize some of the weaknesses. And so they came out of that and went to New England. And what you saw initially was more designed quarterback runs for Justin Fields. And they haven't been going crazy with it, but there's more of it. You didn't see a lot of it through the first 6 games of the year. I think he's had 25 designed runs here in the last 3 games. And then he can, you know, he's lethal on third down. You know, defense has the Bears in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11. And on a scramble, I mean, he can pick up twice, 3 times that. He can go for 61 yards like he did against the Dolphins. So I'm really curious to see how the Lions, the Falcons, the Jets, some of these teams coming up on the schedule maybe try some slightly different approach to limiting the damage he can do with his legs, because he's been absolutely on fire running the ball. And then he threw it a little bit better against Miami, a career high 3 touchdown passes, did a nice job with the play action fakes.
You know, and the completion percentage has been higher the last few weeks for him too. So that's another thing where he's building. That becomes a weapon. It's not just him getting it done, you know, running the football. You mentioned the 3 touchdown passes last week, but that completion percentage has ticked up too, Brad. And I think that's been a real compliment to his game as well.
More efficient when they've thrown the football. And early in the year, he was missing, you know, some people call them layups. Getsy calls them the cheap completions. You know, the check down to the tight end, the little dump off here to the back, the short, easy throw to the wide receiver. They were missing too many of those. And he's been more accurate lately, and therefore they've been more efficient. Yeah, the completion percentage is up. The yardage still isn't where ultimately they want it to go, but hey, this was a work in progress. If you saw this offense in training camp, I mean, they couldn't move the ball at all. They look pretty part of the season. So at this point, they are making rapid improvement. And what's interesting is you brought up Getsy, and a couple of weeks ago, multiple times actually, after some of these bad games, bad offensive football, would say, hey, I see us getting a lot better in practice. And you're listening to him say that, and you can't watch practice, and all you have to go off of is what you saw the previous Sunday. And it's like, you see him getting better. Like, I don't see first downs. I don't see completions. And all of a sudden, things are starting to click a little bit. They've added Chase Claypool to the mix, and they're running the hell out of the football. I mean, they're averaging, I believe it's like 196 yards a game rushing. Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery are kind of splitting the load in the backfield. So they've got some things going for them offensively, and it's been a while since we could say that about the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, you mentioned the run game. I know that was something Lions coach Dan Campbell talked about. When he talked to us on Monday, he said, "Hey, Lions got a big win over the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, last week he was on the couch, had his feet up, was having a beer, and then saw what Justin Fields and this Bears offense did in terms of running the football. 4 straight games, Brad, with 225 yards. I mean, those guys are rolling." And he said, "Look, that made me not relax as much and enjoy my week. I had to start getting to work on Chicago." But you mentioned, Chase Claypool. I would expect his reps to maybe double, to tick up this week as he gets more acclimated to that. Obviously, Mooney's, been a weapon. They've done a good job with Kmet, finding ways to get him the ball a little bit more too. So to your point, this offense seems to be working. But what's been working so well with the run game in particular? I know that's something that Aaron Glenn in this Lions defense has a razor eye focus on trying to limit this week.
Getsy came in with the new offensive line coach, Chris Morgan. They put in this outside zone scheme. They want it to look similar to what you see from the 49ers. Packers obviously do a lot of that. LaFleur in the same family tree. Arthur Smith down in Atlanta. So it's going to look similar to what those guys do. And the linemen, well, they still have more issues than you would prefer. Pass blocking, as everybody knows, is substantially more difficult than run blocking, but these guys can run block, and it's a pretty good fit for the backs. In particular, I think it's a really good fit for Khalil Herbert, who was a 5th-round pick a year ago. Spelled Montgomery when he missed, I think, 3 games with a knee injury in the middle of the season, and got some opportunities here and there. But Herbert has really shined, and he didn't have a good game against Miami, and he was responsible for a punt block that went for a touchdown. But boy, he's been dynamic in the backfield this year. And then Montgomery runs with such good contact balance. He's difficult to bring down with the first hit. And so these guys have kind of fit into this scheme. They've gotten tremendous buy-in from their wide receivers. Now, I know every wide receivers coach in the league will tell you my guys block their asses off, right? I mean, you hear it from all of them. These guys legitimately block. And Darnell Mooney's like not a big guy, 5'10", 5'11", maybe $175. I mean, he will put his nose in there to block for those running backs. And then when the quarterback's a threat to run, obviously that only adds to the mix. It's like they've got 2 running backs in the backfield at all times when you consider Fields with what he can do with his legs.
Well, Brad, let's shift over to the other side of the ball, because obviously, no Roquan Smith, traded him away. Robert Quinn traded him away. Obviously, there's going to be an adjustment period there. We know how explosive Miami can be. We dealt with that before you guys, a couple of weeks ago. But just how different does this Bears defense look now without Quinn and Smith? And what do they have to do to be successful against Detroit on Sunday?
The field, you're talking about, I think, the 31st and 32nd ranked teams in the league on third down, right? I mean, both teams are, I believe, above 50%. The defense is on third down. You can't get off the field. It's going to be a long day. And the defense wasn't playing real well when they had Roquan and when they had Robert Quinn. the Bears are, as I said, not getting enough field on third down. They're not stopping the run particularly well. And they're not rushing the passer. And so, you combine those three elements and you can see why Dallas hung 49 on them and Miami had 35. It's going to be difficult to win football games with that recipe. And around here, people are like, well, where's the pass rush? Why aren't they rushing the passer better? And I always, I look at it, but boy, I'll tell you what, 4 out of 5 times when that's the question, Tim, I think the first answer is, well, they're not stopping the run. You can't rush the quarterback until you earn the right to do that. And when you're getting gashed on first and second down, it's real hard to get after the quarterback on 3rd and 8 when it's already a first down or it's 3rd and 1 or things of that nature. So they've had some takeaways in spurts. Didn't get any last week. Eddie Jackson, I will say this for Lions fans who have watched the Bears for a while now, Eddie Jackson is kind of having a career resurgence. He's in year 6. He was really good for Vic Fangio when he was the coordinator here. Eddie got a big time contract and didn't play very good football the last 2 years ago and the last 2 years. And he would admit that. And he's got buy-in to the new scheme, buy-in with the new staff. He's playing really well. And he's got 4 picks. And then they've got a rookie back there from Penn State at the other safety spot, Jaquan Brisker, who's been pretty impressive. I think he'll be around for a while.
And to your point, Detroit's obviously going to come in a run first type offense, a really strong offensive line. So they're going to want to continue, their success running the football. And Detroit's got some rookies on defense too. I see Detroit and Chicago very similar defensively, at least, Brad. A lot of rookies playing, a lot of rookies starting to make plays. And I think that's going to bode well for the future of both defenses. But like you mentioned, you're going to pay your lumps a little bit when you're playing so many young guys like Detroit and Chicago are. But I think down the road, that's going to benefit, I think, both defenses. Do you agree?
I mean, because you're gonna put yourself in a position where those guys are going to learn. The front office and the coaching staff is going to get to the offseason and say, okay, what this guy do? Where could he get to next season? Do we think he can grow? Do we need to go out and try to replace him or bring in competition for him? These Bears guys, a lot of them are auditioning really because this is a team that is going to be back to having a normal amount of draft picks. They've still got some that are missing and some that they've added. And the Bears are going to have more cap space than any team in the league. So you look at it and you say, some of these young guys, if their agent hasn't told them, their agent needs to tell them, hey, you're playing for your future next season in Chicago or for any other team because it's what you put on film. The Bears are going to be super active this offseason. And so some of these young guys will be part of the core. And, you can talk about practice reps and getting better in practice and getting better in the offseason. Nothing allows a player to improve more rapidly than game reps.
Yeah, it'll be a fun little free agency period for you. I think the last time I saw it was like $100 million or something like that. Man, Brad, you're going to be busy in free agency, bud.
I'm going to have to, at some point at night, I'm going to have to turn my phone off. All right.
All right. I got one more for you, Brad. The Chicago Bears get their 4th victory of the season at home against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. If what happens?
The Lions have to throw the ball a little bit with Goff. And maybe get a couple takeaways. Like I said, they've kind of been streaky with takeaways, and that's the whole thing that Matt Eberflus preaches here. He kind of picked up this defensive system from Rod Marinelli, who obviously learned it at the same time as Lovie Smith under Tony Dungy. That's kind of the tree for this defensive scheme and where it comes from. So if they can be a little better on third down, be a little bit better against the run, I think the Bears will have an opportunity. They've got some momentum now. They've got I think in the locker room, in the building, despite being 3-6 right now, not having the best record. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully it's an entertaining game. The Bears have played some entertaining games recently. Earlier in the year, man, it was some ugly football.
Well, the Lions have been pretty good offensively all year long. They're coming off a big win against Green Bay. So, they're feeling pretty good. The vibe's pretty good there too. So they're going to try to keep that going. The Bears are obviously going to try to, get back on track. Great stuff, Brad. Appreciate you taking the time as always. I'll make sure I stop by and say hello in the press box. Thanks, bud.
Welcome back to the 20 in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. I'm excited about my next guest here, Jerry Jacobs, second-year cornerback for the Detroit Lions. And Jerry, it's been a long year, obviously, with the ACL from last year. But just what did last week feel like for you to get an opportunity to get back on the field with your brothers and then have the impact that you had?
It was a blessing. Like I said, I went through an injury last year. Just to be able to be out there this early in my rehab process, to compete with the guys like that, going against Aaron Rodgers this early in your rehab process, I just thank God because he helped me get through this. And just to be out there like on the field again is just give me momentum and enthusiasm just to play hard. So I was so happy to be out there.
You were jawing a little bit with Aaron, weren't you?
Yes, sir. I had to, man, because last year I went against him. He got me started. I got a defensive pass interference on him
on that Monday night game.
Monday night game last year, and then this year, I got another opportunity to get back out there and play against him. So I was not letting that going down. So I talked to him a little bit.
And you were thrown at 4 times, no catches, had that crucial play, that pass defense late. You came up, made the stick for the tackle for loss. I mean, this has been just such a long year. To think where you were laying on that field in Denver almost a year ago, to kind of having that kind of impact and beating Aaron Rodgers and playing well as you did, it's got to be a blessing, right?
It's a big blessing. I swear, if you watch film, all I did when I got on the field is just thank God because, I just couldn't believe, I tore my ACL in college, and it wasn't this early to be back on the field, but I just couldn't believe that I was able to run with the guys and just trust myself to be out there and play like that, so I was happy.
And how important was it for those 2 games, Miami and Dallas, to play some special teams and kind of get your legs under you a little bit? Now, you obviously had the 21-day practice window, so you got back to practice, but game speed and practice speed.
Way different.
It's way different. So did that help, having the opportunity to play special teams, how big was that those first 2 weeks?
I think Coach Campbell and Coach Philp, because they actually, I was thinking about just coming back and try to get on the defense. Mm-hmm. I wasn't thinking about trying to get my legs on myself, and they actually called me up a little late Dallas week. Like Friday was like, Jared, we think this is best for you. And I really appreciate them for that because that actually did work. Like I'm still doing special teams now, but at the same time, that actually got my feet under me to be able to run and be able to stop all that so I can play like a football player out there. So
did you surprise yourself at all with how well you played last week?
I slick didn't. I knew I had it. I knew I still got it. I just had to trust myself. Like I said, like in practice, the 21 days and stuff like that, that really helped me trust my ability to go out there and play.
Is that the biggest part when you're coming back from a knee injury and ACL like that? It's just trusting yourself, letting it go, not think it's the mental part.
It's the mental part, and that's the part that everybody go through, like with injuries. Like you got to control your mental. Like if you can't control that mental, like it will eat you alive. So just talking to people, talking to Dr. Garvin, and just trying to control my mental really helped me out with this process of rehab.
What was it like in the locker room after that game? I mean, we saw it. The Lions did a great job tweeting that out. AG gets the game ball. Obviously a tough week in that room last week with Aubrey Pleasant, moving on from him. And AG has to take a little bit bigger role. And then you guys play as well as you played against who you played against. What was that like in the locker room after watching him get that game ball?
Oh, man, I was so, I'm still in the moment. I know right now we worry about Chicago, but I'm just so happy for him because, like I told you, he brought one of his guys in, he lost him in that middle of the week. And just to see him, I didn't say he put it behind him, but he moved forward and just focused on us to try to make sure the defense better. And he did that, and he deserved that because he did that week, and we went out there and played phenomenal. And he brought us back together, so he deserved it.
The toughness, the tackle after the tackle for loss you had, you've done that quite a bit. The chirping with Aaron Rodgers, you seem to play with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. And where does that come from? And why do you think that helps your game, is good for you?
I just go back to the coaches again from last year, just give me an opportunity. Just give me an opportunity to just show me that they believe, no matter where you go in the draft, no matter where you at, who you are, they're just believing you if you can play, or if they believe in you, trusting. So just going back off that, I transferred that over to this year, and I already knew they trust me and stuff like that. So I just had to just think about coming back and being who I was before I left. So I want to be a little better than that.
Are you a great case for players out there that it doesn't matter where you play, where you came from, where you're drafted? The NFL will find you if you can play. I mean, you went to community college, right?
Yes,
you
sir.
went undrafted,
Right.
fought your way onto this team, fought your way to be a starter,
Yes, sir.
had ACL.
Yes,
now you got to
sir.
go through all this rehab again,
Yes,
and now
sir.
you come back and is that a great story for young guys just to be like, just put your head down and keep grinding?
Yes, sir.
Because they'll find you.
And I like how you describe it. I love to talk to the kids and stuff like that, just to show them like it's a way, like, you know, like not just because of my story, but like you can make your own story, like, you know, about doing what you do. Just like you said, put your head down and keep working.
Well, let's talk about Chicago a little bit. 'Cause
Yes,
that's
sir.
a team that's on
They're on fire.
Yeah, they're on fire. I mean, 4 straight games with 225 rushing yards. What jumps out when you throw the film on? When you guys started to prepare on Wednesday, what jumped out about them to you?
Man, we have to control Fields. And when I say control Fields, he can throw the ball too, but we have to control him by not letting him run the ball all day. Like, being another running back for them, like, you know, being a third string running back, which they got 2 already pretty good running backs.
Yeah.
So, like, we
And
got to
Herbert,
control.
Montgomery, yeah.
So we have to just control Fields, and, you know, that's where it started right now.
So how important are those rush lanes for those guys up front and trying to contain him and just being gap sound, being gap responsible? Is that kind of some of the big keys this week for you
Big
guys?
keys, like we said, we can't run past the quarterback.
Yeah.
You can't run past him. So we really just gonna have to collide the pressure in the backfield just so he can be, you know, look, I know where to move. Just like we gotta contain him. We can't let him just play his game. His game is I can't read run. Like, you know, we can't let him do that. We gotta let him just like really look for some options. You know, we can't just let him run. So we trying to like collide the pocket.
9 points allowed last week. How important is it for you guys to stack good performances on top of each other's defense? Obviously, the numbers are what they are, right? You guys have struggled early on. You weren't a part of that, but they are what they are. And so now you guys finally, you know, put it together for 60 minutes, had a good game.
Right.
To almost validate that,
Yes,
to have another one, to stack it on top, how important is that for you guys?
It's very important, and that's what we standing by now. Like, if you hear our defensive meeting, we trying to control. I mean, we trying to bring over this week to the week after, to the week after, to the week. We trying to keep it going because we know we capable. We know what we capable of, and we showed it this Sunday, and we can do it again this Sunday. So we just really trying to keep that same swagger, that same momentum, that same hungriness, and just going this week to Chicago, and, you know, try to pull out the win.
What about those receivers they got there? Obviously made the move last week to get Chase Claypool at 6'4", 230. I mean, different kind of guy,
dog,
you know.
big
And
dog,
then you know, Mooney's a smaller, quicker, faster, but he's been productive too. Just what you see from those guys and the expectation for those matchups, you probably might see both guys on Sunday.
They got some pretty good receivers. You know, they got St. Brown over there too, the big brother. But Claypool, you know, he just got over there, so we ain't really been seeing him in that offense like that. But Mooney, that's another guy that's a big star over there too that we really gonna have to control when it comes to the passing game. You know, he play in the outside, the inside, the twos, like he play everywhere. So wherever he at, we really got to know where he at, him and Justin Fields. So we gonna have to stop him a little early.
It's great to see you back out there.
I'm
Just
so
the
happy.
energy you bring. It you know, with Jeff playing the way he's playing. Now
guy.
you get in there, your second. You guys have locker right next to each other. And I saw before we went up here to do this, you guys were chatting a little bit. How good of a is it to have a guy like that sitting right next to you? You guys look like you maybe bounce stuff off each other quite a bit there, and you're always chatting.
That's just my guy. You know, he went through it last year, and I was playing. In the beginning of the season, I was hurt, and he was playing. And it's like we there for each other. Like last year, he was there for me, and I just met him. And this year, we got even tighter just because I was there. He was there for me again while he was playing. So to be back out there, he's so happy to see me out there. I'm just so happy to know he's on the other side of me, man. It's just a great feeling. And that's my guy. We just got to keep it going. You know, stay humble and just keep working.
I'm glad to see Kerby have the game that he had.
That boy is balling.
He is balling.
Hey, that's a rookie that you're gonna have to remember for a long time. If you just keep, you know, staying focused and staying where that ball at, he gonna make plays.
But your second year, Jeff's in his third year, Kirby's a rookie. Now you guys are starting to make some plays, right? Is it exciting now to see some of these, you know, that's pretty young secondary, and now just like you said, just stack them on top, and then you're on something. Right?
Yes, sir. It's great to see guys like that. You know, we still got T-Walt, you know, the big vet in the room. You know, he still shows the ropes around the thing. But like you said, we still got a lot of young guys that are really hungry, ready to play. You know.
Well, go to Chicago, get yourself another good win there, stack those on top of each
Yes,
other.
sir.
Thank you for joining me. It's
Thank
fun.
you so much.
It's fun watching you. You bring a lot of energy to that defense. It's good seeing you out there, and I hope you keep it up the rest of the season.
Thank you so much for having me on
Appreciate
here.
you.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the 20-Minute in the Huddle podcast. It is time for the key matchup segment presented by BetMGM. And I'm already looking forward to this segment, Mike. I mean, you have come prepared, my friend. They're lined up here. He is Mike O'Hara, the Hall of Famer, obviously. He joins me from time to time for key matchups. We love when you do, Mike, and this is going to be special. I just know it.
Tim, you and those people out there think these are statistics and all that. These are my one-liners. These are my jokes. I can't remember all that stuff.
Well, I love it. You know, as we do every week, we're going to talk about 5 key matchups. And Mike, let's start with this one. Obviously, Justin Fields versus Alex Anzalone, linebacker for the Lions. Justin Fields, a quarterback for the Bears. He's playing some pretty good football right now.
Yeah, really, and he's really enhanced what he did last year as a rookie. I mean, really, this is sort of the new age of quarterbacks in the National Football League, and the Lions are going through the gauntlet of them. Started out with Jalen Hurts week 1, then Tua Tagovailoa, different player, stand and throw very well. And now this kid here, I think he's just a terrific prospect, way better than I thought he was going to be.
And you just look at how he's progressed throughout the season. I mean, he was completing 54.8% of his passes through the first 6 weeks of the season. He's increased that to 65.3 over the last 3. And that offense has scored, I think, 94 points over the last 3 weeks. During that span, he's got 104.7 passer rating. He has 257 yards a game on average. I mean, last week he had 178 yards rushing against Miami in that close loss. And he's a little bit different, where Jalen Hurts is a little bit smaller. Justin's a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, a little bigger frame, can handle a little more of the pounding probably. And boy, the Lions have to be really good against him on Sunday.
Well, he's already got 600 plus yards from scrimmage, and what you mentioned last week in the last game against the Miami Dolphins. I mean, this is really, not only that, he threw 3 touchdown passes, incidentally.
Right. So it wasn't just
only 123 yards passing for the game, but 3 of them were touchdowns. And look, the ball doesn't know how long it took to get in the end zone. Okay, they count just like a 90-yard throw and all that. But this is really a special player.
And then when you look at the Lions' part of stopping him, I think it takes an entire team effort. But look, Alex Anzalone's been playing some pretty good football the last few weeks. I think he does a lot of the dirty stuff that allows some other guys like Derek Barnes last week to come up and have the type of performance that he did. But look, he makes all the signals. He plays just about 100% of the snaps every single week. He's a captain. And, I think it's going to be on him to kind of rally the troops and make sure that they're, that they rally to the football, for one, when Justin Fields breaks contain, and just, be sound like they were last week against Green Bay. Let's see that translate and they can stack on top of a good performance on top of a good performance.
Yeah, I think a couple, 2 or 3 things, and you just sort of hit on it right there. The defense in general is getting better.
Yeah,
it's played better and better, and I think probably its best game of the season, maybe even last season too. But the best game of the season was last week in a game where they beat the Green Bay Packers. One thing about Alex, he has speed and he has acceleration. If you give him if you block the guys up front, and Derek Barnes did a great job of that against the Packers, he can get through the crack and cause havoc there in the backfield and maybe get a sack or make him redirect the quarterback and all that. And I think that's one of his strengths. And he seems to stay healthy and resilient and all of that. So I think he's a key guy for the Detroit Lions this week.
All right, let's move on to the perimeter a little bit, and that one's out. All right, we
Go
got
on.
the next one. And the Bears, made a trade deadline move. They sent a second-round pick to Pittsburgh to get Chase Claypool. And, look, I think Jeff Okudah is going to see a lot of Chase Claypool, but I think Jerry Jacobs is too. And so I want to focus this week on Jerry Jacobs first. Chase Claypool, I thought it was a big boost for this defense to get Jerry Jacobs back. I mean, he was thrown at 4 times, no receptions. He had a tackle for loss. He had a really key pass defense late in that game. And look, he's a physical guy, Mike, and I just think he brings something to that outside, a little bit of edge, I think, to Jerry Jacobs. Just, how he had to fight to get into this league. And I think there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And when I watch him, he plays that way to me. And I think he gives that defense a little something.
Look, Claypool is 6'4", 238. I don't think Jerry Jacobs even knows that. I don't think he cares. I don't think anything gets in his way. Look, I wouldn't want to be the guy in front of him. My car breaks down, he can't get through the light. You know what I mean? He's got that sort of dynamic personality to me. You know,
Yeah.
None of this is in a bad way. To me, these are good traits for a pro football player, and I think he'll give Claypool all he can handle. I don't care if he's 6'9".
And Claypool, obviously, just stepping into that situation last week, only played 26 snaps against Miami. I would expect that to probably double, and that just gives Justin Fields another weapon on the outside. You mentioned the height and weight. It's a big body, a guy that can go high point the football, some 50-50 balls, which they hadn't had in that offense. So it'll be interesting to see, how they use him. But I think Jerry's going to see him. I think Jeff's going to see him. Mike Hughes, who played pretty well last week, could see him too. The Lions are kind of rotating guys in that secondary. I think all three of those guys could see him. But when Jerry Jacobs and Chase Claypool are matched up, then my eyes will certainly go that way.
And look, and Claypool's had good stats, and it's kind of surprised to me that Pittsburgh would let him go. Would deal him with some of the stuff he did there. Look, he had 9 touchdowns his rookie year, kind of slipped down to 3, but he's still getting production. 62 catches, 59 catches, 8 in the first 8 games this year. You kind of wonder why.
Rookie quarterback there.
Yeah, that too. That's part of it. You kind of wonder why they would move him like that. To me, but that's not the issue for Sunday. The issue is don't let him dominate whatever playing time he gets. Just keep him in check, and I think Roberts can do that.
Well, let's move over to the offensive side of the football a little bit with Eddie Jackson, their talented safety, who's really having a terrific season. He's got 4 interceptions on the season, 2 forced fumbles, 4 passes defended, and that matchup with him and Jared Goff. That quarterback safety matchup is always intriguing to me. When you talk about a quarterback's eyes, right? It's that safety that they're always trying to tease and trying to move and trying to create space. And, I think that's going to be important in this one. I think Eddie Jackson is their kind of playmaker in their defense, especially with no Roquan Smith, no Robert Quinn now. They traded those guys away. I think now that's kind of Jackson's defense now. He's that playmaker. He's that guy that can go get them a big play. And so, when you talk about Jared, look, he's made a couple mistakes, right? He made some turnovers. That was a big point of emphasis the last couple weeks is limiting some of those turnovers. And so, to me, I think that's going to be a key matchup. I think this is going to be a close football game. It's supposed to be cold, and both teams like to run the football, but when you do throw it, just don't make that critical mistake, right? We've seen the fumbles return for a touchdown in New England. We saw the pick sixes early in the year. Don't make that disastrous play, and see if you can't maneuver him, Jackson, and see if you can't make a big play over his head.
Well, it's going to be hard to maneuver him. And, also, it seems to be something that happens the first possession of the second half, too, with Jared Goff, too. Look, avoid that. Don't give them a momentum shift at all, if in fact there is one to be had. But look, this was a 4th-round draft pick out of Alabama, and a pretty good, strong kid, 6 feet, 206 pounds. He looked like an Alabama player.
Yeah.
A guy who's really, really put together. And look, came in strong too. Second year, he had 6 interceptions, made all pro the next year, dropped to 4 or whatever it was, and then had kind of a dry spell until this year. Didn't have anything the last 2 years. Now he's kind of back on his game. Like, not kind of, but he really is back on his game. And I think he's a threat in the secondary.
Yeah, 100%. So just take care of the football, right? If you're Jared Goff, don't make the big mistake. Still be you, still be aggressive, still try to make some plays, but just you can't make the big mistake.
Number one thing is get back to the huddle with the ball, okay?
All right, let's go back to the Lions defense. And Sean Elliott, I think, has been playing some pretty good football since he was, benched and then, brought back in. We talked to Brian Duker, the defensive backs coach, this week, and he said, look, there was some assignment stuff. He wasn't quite being, as sound as we want him to. I think that benching. And then he ended up having to go, back in the game because of injuries.
3 plays or
because
something
of injury. But I think that kind of, that was a awakening call for Deshaun Elliott, and he's played some pretty good football, and I can see him being matched up a little bit against their talented tight end Cole Kmet, a guy who they really like to try to get the football to, 6'6", 260 pounds. He was a guy that they direct snap to in the backfield, kind of like what Travis Kelce does with Kansas City on a 3rd and 1 play. And, he had a couple touchdowns last week. I think they're really trying to make him a bigger part of that offense. And so to me, that's a key matchup is line safety Deshaun Elliott versus Bears tight end Cole Kmet, because I think those two are going to see quite a bit of each other on Sunday.
Well, I'm glad you said Kmet before I had to figure out how to pronounce it. But one thing, look, he had a big year last year. Not all pro type year, but he had 60 catches for 601 yards or something like that. And they haven't used him quite as much this year, I don't think. He's 19 catches. And that's really, I think he's got more value to them than that. But let's not have it this week. Let's have it next week.
And I think, like we talked about with this passing game evolving a little bit more as Justin Fields gets more comfortable. Now you've got a weapon on the outside that you feel pretty good about. I could see there being some more one-on-one opportunities for a guy like Cole Kmet. Plus, you have to, watch the run game so much. I mean, Chicago's run for at least 225 yards in 4 straight games, Mike. I mean, no team has done that since the mid-'70s. And so...
I remember that.
And so there's all those elements now that I think you can now Cole Kmet, I think, becomes a bigger part of that. So that's a key matchup.
You're right, that's a key matchup. And also just think about it. They're running for this many yards, and your young quarterback is getting his game together as a passer too. It's a deadly duo right there. It really is.
They got a lot of confidence.
Well, they should.
Yeah. All right, last one. To me, Braxton Jones, left tackle for them, 5th-round draft pick.
Out of Southern Utah.
Out of Southern Utah versus Aiden Hutchinson, and Aiden made a big play the other day. He's got 4.5 sacks on the year. He's now got his first career interception. But when you look at a guy like Braxton Jones and look at there's some rookie-on-rookie crime this week, right, on the left side there. But look, he's allowed 5 sacks on the season. Yeah, and like all rookies, that's just going to happen. But to me, I think Aiden's got an opportunity this week. We're not talking about an all-pro guy. We're not talking about a guy with a ton of experience where, Aiden's got to try to figure this out. I think this rookie across from him is going to be trying to figure it out just as Aiden is. And I think this is an opportunity this week for Aiden Hutchinson maybe to make a few more big impact plays like we saw in Washington, like we saw against Green Bay with the interception. And I think that's a big one.
Well, you would hope so. And look, we've both talked to Todd Wash, the defensive line coach here, and he told us back after they drafted Aiden and since then, look, one thing, the transition from college to pro for a pass rusher, a rookie pass rusher, is as tough as anything else in the National Football League. And when you look at it this way, and this really makes sense, as a 4th-year player at Michigan last year, and he had a great year. And this takes nothing away from him. It's just the reality of the National Football League. You're playing against freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and you're 22 years old. You come into the National Football League, and you're playing against guys who've been there for 10 years.
Yeah.
If you've got a good left tackle, they don't go.
Right.
They play from their rookie year till they're out there for 15 years, and you have no advantage on them. This is a matchup to me where I think Aiden Hutchinson should have the advantage, and I think he should take advantage of it. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't. I really would be. I think getting the interception he got against the Packers last week, although he didn't make the initial play and it was a bad throw and all that, but he did it.
Right.
And I think that should give him that, and the fact that they follow through and they win the game. It's an upset victory any way you want to look at it. When you really look at the two teams, not so much. But I think that this should give Aiden Hutchinson a little more belief, a little more confidence, a little more assurance in what he's doing, that it's working. Continue to do this, work on it, develop it, and I think he's got a chance to have a big game.
And he's got to be really good against the run game too, especially off the edge.
Absolutely.
He can't be, getting out of some of his rush lanes. He can't be, going off assignment.
If you get inside and he's gone.
Let Fields get out. I mean, we saw it with the big plays last week. He can go. And so you want to be able to make plays in the passing game, but I think he's got to be strong against the run too. He's got to be able to contain the edge, be responsible with his rushes. I just think overall, I think he's going to be a big component of how well the Lions play defensively, both from a run game pass point and containing the edge and trying to contain Justin Fields, and from trying to get Justin Fields on the ground when he does drop back and throw.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to one of the post-game sessions with the Bears last week after their game, and their head coach Matt Everfuse, if I'm saying it right, said, one of the things, and he was talking about defending his own quarterback. He said you've got to rush 5 and you've got to have one guy on him. In other words, if that's a spy or whatever it is, but you can't just let him. You've got to keep eyes on him at all times. That's something Detroit Lions, I think, have to figure out how to do.
Well, he is the Hall of Famer, Mike O'Hara. Thanks for joining me, Mike, for key matchups. It was good.
And let me just add one thing. All the stuff we've talked about, if it's Chicago weather and it's windy and it's snowy and all that, put it away.
Put it away?
Changes the game.
It does, and it's supposed to be, I think, 32 degrees, 32 to 36, somewhere right in there, mid-30s.
Take a warm coat, brother.
I'll take a warm coat. You do, too. Thank you so much for joining me. Obviously, big game Sunday. PJ Clark and I will be in Chicago. We'll break that down, and it should be a fun matchup.
It should be.
NFC North, right? Black
NFC
and blue
North.
division.
How about this? The Lions win in 2 games against division rivals back-to-back. Haven't done that in a long time.
It'd be a nice kick start to the second start for their season, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me, Mike.